Hello neighbors, Gian-Carlo Carra here, City Councilor for Ward 9 and your candidate for re-election in Ward 9 on October 18th of this year. It's a beautiful June we're enjoying here in Calgary, and June is National Indigenous History Month in Canada. June 21st, the solstice, the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, is also National Indigenous Peoples Day. And this is an important one. This is perhaps one of the most important ones we've ever faced. As the bodies of 215 students were discovered in the Kamloops School, the former residential school in Kamloops, as the body count rises in former residential school sites across Canada, as maddeningly there are moves to deny and suppress the idea that the residential school system was inherently a culturally genocidal project, as racism in general is loosed upon the land. My campaign is based on the idea that any recovery for Calgary, any best future for Calgary, must be based on an equitable and anti-racist future. And at the center, or at the foundation of that project, is our collective commitment to truth and reconciliation. I want to stand in solidarity as a settler ally to our Indigenous neighbors, and I hope that that's what you want to do as well. I recently had the opportunity to engage through the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board in a series of really good Indigenous awareness workshops that were done with the entire board. And Forum Relations, an amazing company with deep ties to the Indigenous community, led us in that workshop, and they left me with a list of 10 things that I can do and that I hope that you can do to move the project of reconciliation forward. And I wanted to share those with you on National Indigenous Peoples Day. Before I do that though, I want to acknowledge that as upsetting as the 215 stolen children is to me, it can be unbelievably triggering and trauma-inducing to our Indigenous neighbors. And I encourage us to all look out for each other. There is the First Nations and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline. The information how to access that is below, as well as, of course, 211. Let's get to the 10 things that we can do as settler allies to advance the project of reconciliation. Let's commit to that on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. The first one is to recognize and celebrate diversity amongst Indigenous nations and communities. We know that the Indigenous peoples of this land are extremely diverse and they are extremely resilient, and we have to educate ourselves and acknowledge and celebrate that diversity. How do we do that? Number 2 is diversify your media. There are so many amazing artists and podcasts and media sources for Indigenous issues, and we've listed a bunch of our favorites in the section below this video. I encourage everyone this summer to attend an event or celebration and spend time in the oral tradition. Number 4, read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action and make a point of knowing which calls to action apply to you. Something I'm very proud of in my time as a city councilor in Ward 9 on City Council is that we undertook work called the White Goose Flying Report, and it looked at the 94 calls to action, and it made commitments specific to what municipal governments were responsible for. And I think every Canadian has to educate themselves on the calls to action and make commitments that apply to them. Number 5 is know your influence and ask how to use it to help take action and to spread the word. And that's exactly what I'm attempting to do with this video on National Indigenous Peoples Day. Number 6, buy Indigenous. This amazing t-shirt is by a small company called Redman Redman Customs, I apologize. Chase is a Ward 9 resident, a local Indigenous entrepreneur. There are so many opportunities to buy Indigenous. I encourage you to do that. Moonstone Creations in Inglewood, of course, is another opportunity to plug into that community and support them. And that's just sort of like small consumer stuff. If you're part of a company or you're part of a procurement process, there's all kinds of opportunities to plug into Indigenous procurement in a much more meaningful and profound way. Number seven is decolonize. Make space to do things differently. We have to understand that the project of cultural genocide that was the residential school system eradicated or attempted to eradicate an unbelievably resilient way of life, and we need to understand that, and we need to make space to do things differently. Build relationships is number 8. Listen more than you speak, and already I'm speaking too much. Number 9, volunteer with and donate to Indigenous-led or Indigenous-serving organizations. And number 10, be accountable for your learnings, for your actions, and for your community. I pledge myself, my entire campaign is based on building an equitable and vibrant recovery, and truth and reconciliation sits at the forefront of that, at the baseline of that. I hope you'll join me and all settler allies in this critical moment in Canadian history as we embrace truth and reconciliation, we embrace anti-racism, and we fulfill the best promise of what it is to be a pluralistic Canadian society.